everyone, welcome back to our channel. I just pretty much want to share with you guys my labor and delivery story. I wasn't sure if I wanted to share it because it's not something that I really want to look back on. It was not at all what I thought it was gonna be. Um, So let me just get into the story. So my original due date was June 13th, but I didn't have my son until June 22nd. Um, on my due date, I actually had a doctor's appointment, and I went, and they checked me. My doctor checked me, and I still wasn't dilated. My cervix wasn't softening, so really nothing was happening. So right then I kind of knew that my labor was not going to be easy at all. So she had scheduled my induction for the 20th, the following Monday. So I went in to the hospital Monday, the 20th, got checked in. They brought me up to my room, got me undressed, put on the gown, laid in the bed. Everything was fine. Still, I had no idea really what I was in for. So I'm kind of just laying there. Sorry if I look over here. He's like laying right here. But I was like laying there and I was laughing. I was like joking around with my boyfriend and my mom, and I had like no clue. So a doctor came in, checked me to see if I was dilated. Still completely closed. Nothing, no dilation, no nothing. So at that point, everyone was kind of like, okay, like nothing's happening. So when they do an induction, they actually do two different types of medication to speed you along. The first one is Cervidil, and it's pretty much like this long, like a shoestring that has like medication on it, and they kind of just like put it right up there, and that's supposed to soften your cervix. So he did that, I want to say around 9 o'clock at night. So that was done, and I'm excited thinking it's gonna dilate me to like 5 or 6 centimeters and I'm gonna be good. So I'm sleeping, like peacefully sleeping, and then all of a sudden around 4 a.m. on Tuesday, I started to get this horrible, horrible, horrible back pain. And it was probably the worst pain I've ever felt in my entire life. So a different doctor had came in on Tuesday around like noonish to take out the Cervidil and to check to see if I was dilated at all. They took it out, and at this point I'm in so much pain. I didn't want anyone touching me. I didn't want to look at anybody. I was crying. It was horrible. So he takes it out and checks me. I'm only dilated 2 centimeters. So at that point I'm just laying there and I'm like, this it's just not gonna happen. I can't do it. So then they wanted me to eat, but I was so scared to eat because the back pain was so severe and it was so painful that I was throwing up like every hour. It was just that bad. So they were like, okay, don't eat. So they just kept giving me like ice chips, like little pieces of ice to just keep me hydrated, and I was fine with that. Even though I was still throwing up, I was fine because I didn't want to eat. So then they wanted me to shower, and I thought walking maybe would relieve my back pain, but I was so wrong. I got up and I couldn't even, my legs were so in pain. I couldn't stand. I almost like, my boyfriend had to like walk me because I couldn't take it. I couldn't take it. And I'm sitting in the shower, my boyfriend's standing next to the shower, just holding my hand, just watching me. And I got to the point where I was like sitting on the shower floor. I was like, I can't, I need to get out. Like, I couldn't stand. So he takes me back out, and I get in the bed, they give me a new gown, and I'm just laying there, and I'm just trying to breathe. That's all my boyfriend kept telling me was just breathe, breathe, breathe. And I was just trying, but it was just so, it was so hard. And then they asked me, I like begged her. I was like, is there any way I can get something for the pain? Anything. She was like, well, I'll give you two choices. I'll give you this one medication, I forgot what it's called, but I had it the night before. And it worked. It morally put me to sleep than really took the pain away. It just put me to sleep, and then I woke up and it was, I felt everything. So, or she was like, I can ask if we can do the epidural. So I was like, you know what? Let me do the epidural, which was a huge mistake, being that I was only 2 centimeters, because it only lasted, epidural only lasted about an hour and a half. And at that point I felt so discouraged that it only lasted that long. But when he came in to give me the epidural, I thought that this was like my ticket out. I was like, pain is gonna go away, everything is gonna be fine, because that's all everyone kept telling me when I was pregnant, because I originally didn't want any pain medicine at all. Because some people would tell me that the pain medicine goes to the baby, then some people tell me no, like, get it, you're gonna want it. So I was like, you know what, let's just do it. And he came in, he sat me over, and I'm like leaning on my boyfriend, and he's like, okay, so you're gonna feel a shock go down your leg. And I'm thinking like this little sting. No, I felt like I was struck by lightning. It was like, it was so bad, and I jumped, and everyone like freaked out and was like, no, don't jump. So I was like, I'm just laying there, and I have like tears in my eyes, because the shock was so, it wasn't painful, but it's not a shock that you expect. It was literally like a bolt of lightning like went down my leg. So that took maybe 30 seconds, and it kicked in, and I'm just like I felt nothing. So at that point, they laid me back down, and I'm fine. I think I ate something, and I'm fine. I'm like laughing, watching TV, and I was like, and I'm sitting here thinking, this is it. I'm gonna feel like this until I have him. No pain, no nothing. So they come in to check my dilation again. And at that point, this was around, I got the epidural around 5:30. So they came and checked me, I want to say around 7. And I think at that point I was 4 to 5. So I was like, okay, like I'm making some progress, slowly, but I'm making progress. So, and they had already given me the Pitocin, which really is supposed to speed up your labor, but they were giving me like a drop an hour, like 1 drop an hour through my IV, so it wasn't doing anything. So the doctor comes back in, and I tell her that I need to go to the bathroom, and she was like, no, you can't get up, because the epidural pretty much numbs you from like this, your belly button down. And I was like, so how am I supposed to go to the bathroom? She was like, well, we have to give you a catheter. I was like, I didn't know what it was, and I was like, okay, what is that? They were like, we have to put a tube up there in like to your bladder so it catches everything. So I was like, okay. And I'm thinking this little tiny thin tube, not gonna feel, no, it was like this thick plastic tube. And at first I didn't feel it because I was still numb. But what's the matter? But after a while, when the epidural wore off, I felt it, and it was so uncomfortable. Every time I would close my legs, I felt it. It was so uncomfortable. So I think around 11 o'clock on Tuesday, 11 o'clock Tuesday night, the epidural was wearing off, and I started to push on my legs, and I was like, I can feel it. I was like, no, I don't want to feel it. So, at that point, the back pain was starting to come back, and I started to get very upset, and I started to cry. And I didn't put 2 and 2 together, the reason why I was getting the back pain, but I did put it together after the fact. When I previously, my first doctor's appointment on my due date, she had scheduled me for a sonogram, a physical sonogram for him, and they had found out that he was face up. So when babies are born, they have a soft spot on the top of their head, and usually when they're facing the right way, that's what's pushing on your back. But instead of his soft spot pushing my back, it was the back of his head, so it was harder. So his head was right on my nerve, on the right side of my back, and he was just pushing on it, and it was so, like, nothing, when you have nerve pain, especially in your back, nothing is taking that away, nothing is helping it, and it's the worst pain. It's the worst pain you will ever feel in your life. Yeah. So at that point, around midnight, I had it. I was in so much pain. I was crying. I had nurses coming in every 5 to 10 minutes to check to see if I was dilated. So I think someone came in around 2 a.m. to check to see if I was dilated. Wasn't dilated. I think I was at 5. I think I was at 5 to 6, I think she said. And she was like, we can give you the peanut bowl. I was like, God. I was like, okay. So it was this huge, like huge ball that they just put in between my legs. They lay me on the side, they put one leg over it and one leg under it, and supposedly that's supposed to help move the baby's head down. So I was so uncomfortable at that point. I had an IV here, I had an IV in my back for the epidural, I had the blood pressure cuff going off every 5 minutes. Now they want to flip me over and put this ball in between my legs. So at this point, I was not getting any sleep. They were coming in every time I would move, I guess the fetal monitor would shift. Every 5 minutes they were coming in, okay, we have to fix the monitor, we have to change your position. They just weren't leaving me alone. So I just wasn't sleeping. And at that point, I was petrified because the pain was so bad, and I started to shake like really bad. I couldn't breathe. At that point, I was getting pain in my stomach. I was throwing up. I looked at my boyfriend. I was like crying, and I think he actually at one point started to cry because he was so scared. I looked at him. I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it out, so I love you. And I was dead serious. I did not know what was gonna happen to me. I'm screaming for someone to help me. My mom was crying. She didn't know what to do. The nurses almost had tears in their eyes because I was in so much pain for so long. Now I'm talking, I was in pain from Tuesday at 4 a.m. from like Monday all the way up until I had my C-section on Wednesday evening. So I'm just looking at everybody. I was like, I'm gonna die. This is it. Like, I'm not gonna make it. And my whole pregnancy, I kind of knew that my labor was not gonna be easy. I had a feeling because my pregnancy, I had such a hard pregnancy. So I kind of knew in the back of my mind, this is not going to go as smoothly as I want it to go. So then I think around 4 a.m. I was sitting up in bed actually just like this because I was feeling so much pressure from him that at 5 centimeters I was trying to push, and they were like, no, you can't because you have to be 10. So I was like, oh my god, it was, and the pressure alone was more pain. The only thing that would relieve the pain was to push. So, and they always knew when I was pushing because his heartbeat would start to go faster. So I was like, all right, I can't push because I don't want him to go into distress. I don't want to hurt him. So I was like, I have to stop. So instead of laying down, I was sitting up just like this, and that would kind of relieve the pressure in a way, or it would make it harder for me to push when I was sitting up. So that was really the only way. I was sleeping sitting up, basically. And I was sleeping sitting up, just like this. And they came in around 4 a.m. to, I think, check to see if I was dilated again. I think I was still at 6. And at that point, I was trying to go to sleep. I think I fell asleep. And then they had told me, I think they came in again around 6. And they had told me another doctor was going to come in and check my dilation again in a couple minutes. So I was like, okay. So I tried to go back to sleep. Couldn't do it. And it felt like when you're in pain, time goes so slow that it was just, I just cried. That's all I could do was cry. And I'm just laying there and I'm holding the side of the bed for dear life. I held it so tight. I had like marks on my hands. I was holding it so tight. And it just hurt so bad to even just hold the bed. Like everything, every move I made just hurt so bad. So I think she came in around 8 and she said I was dilated. I think she said 7 or 7 to 8. And I was so happy. So then I think I fell back to sleep till I think like 12. Then they came in again. I was dilated to 9. And I looked at the one nurse. I was like, I need to push. I need to push. I need to push. I need to push. So then and that was like an hour later. So they checked me again and I was still at 9. So they were like, okay, you're almost there. You're almost there. So I was like, okay. So then about 2 hours later, at like 2:30ish, 3 o'clock, I called the nurse. I was like, no, I need to push. Like now I need to push. So she called the doctor. The doctor came in and I was at 10. And I was so happy. Oh my God, I was so happy. This was on Wednesday at like 3 o'clock. So the nurse came and she was like, I heard you were ready. I heard you were at 10. And she like gave me like a big high five. She was like, okay, you ready? And so then they got like the bed ready. And all these nurses came in to help me. My boyfriend had my left leg. My mom had my right leg. And I was pushing so hard. My face was turning purple. I couldn't breathe. And I was trying. Like I was really, like I was pushing. And I felt like I was making progress, but in the back of my mind I kind of knew like he wasn't there. And my mom kept telling me, I see his head, I see his head. Everyone was telling me that they saw his head, but later to find out that everyone was lying because he wasn't there. So I was like, you see him? You see him? And they were like, yeah. So just keep pushing. So I'm pushing as hard as I possibly can. So then she goes, okay, he's not coming. So she goes, try pushing on your side. So I flip on my right side and my leg is like all the way up in the air. And she's like, push as hard as you can. Just try and push my hand out. Because her fingers were like not all the way in there, but they were like kind of there. So she was like, just try and push my hand. So I'm trying, and all of a sudden I see the doctor look at my mom, and the doctor's just shaking her head. She was like, mm-mm. And my mom goes, C-section? And the doctor was like, yeah. And then I looked at the doctor. I was like, why? And she was like, his head, because he was face up, he was like stuck on my pelvic bone. So every time I would push, he would move, but then when the contraction would go away, he would push off my pelvic bone and go back up my stomach. So I was like, there's no possible way I can push him out. She was like, no. So I was like, okay, so I can get the C-section done now. And she was like, well, I have one woman ahead of you, and then I'll come get you. Because she knew how much pain I was in. She was like, I'm going to come get you. So I asked the nurse, the doctor left, and I asked the nurse, I said, how long does a C-section take? She goes, oh, about 45 to 50 minutes. So I was like, okay, like, let me just relax, and she'll be here soon. This was at about 3:45. So I was like, okay, around 3:30ish, she should be here, 3:40ish. So I'm laying there. My boyfriend's sitting right next to me, and I'm trying to take a nap because I still hadn't slept. And I just see the clock. 4 o'clock came, 4:30 came, 5 o'clock came. So finally, the anesthesiologist came in at 5:30. Around 5:15 to give me the spinal tap to numb me. So he's like talking to me, and he was like, you ready? I was like, I had no energy. I couldn't even, I was just so tired. I still had this horrible pain in my back. So they wheel me to the operating room to give me the C-section, and he gives me the spinal tap, and I was holding on to the doctor because at that point my boyfriend wasn't in there yet. He was, when you deliver, you're in one room, and then after the fact you go to another room. It's called mother baby, so you go to that room. That's more of just where the babies are, where the nursery is and all that type of stuff. So he's bringing all of our stuff to mother baby. So I'm leaning on the doctor, and she's like, are you okay? I was like, yeah, I just want this back pain to go away. And she's like, well, when he gives you the spinal tap, trust me, it will be gone. So he gives me the spinal tap, and the shock on my leg, I didn't even feel it. I didn't care. I didn't even care. So it numbs me completely from like my shoulders down. Like I felt nothing, nothing. And they have to put it that way because they cut you a little under your stomach. So they were like, I think one of the doctors was pressing on my stomach, and he was like, do you feel this? And I was like, I don't feel anything. So my boyfriend came back in. I had the oxygen like in my nose because I was having trouble breathing the whole time because I was so much in pain, and I was like panicking, so I wasn't really breathing. So they gave me the oxygen. Then my boyfriend came back in, and I was just talking to him, and all of a sudden I didn't know how much progress they were making like with the C-section because they weren't really telling me anything, and they had like the curtain up. So then all of a sudden I hear my son like cry, and it was, and I started to tear, but I didn't want to cry because my boyfriend was like sitting right next to me, so I didn't want to like freak him out. So he walked away and actually started to tear. He walked away to go see him, and he came back, and I was like, is he okay? Is he okay? He was like, yeah, he's fine. He's big. And I was like, how big is he? So he was 8 pounds, 5 ounces, 21.5 inches long. So I was like, wow. I was like, okay, that explains why I was so big while I was pregnant. So then they gave him to me, and I just like stared at him because he was so like beautiful, and he looked just like the both of us. And at that point, all the pain that I felt I didn't forget it, but it kind of didn't matter. Um, it didn't matter because he was okay, and I was okay, and I didn't really care what happened to me, but he was okay. So that's all I cared about. He was fine. He was out. He was healthy. He was a good weight. But it's definitely not something that I like to think about because it was so much pain. And just thinking about how painful it was makes me nervous. And it gives me like really bad anxiety when I think about it. Because it was just it was that painful. You know, I was in back labor for 39 hours. And anyone who has a child or who's went through back labor is a whole different, back labor isn't regular labor. It's 10 times worse. Not to downplay anyone who's had a baby, but back labor is something that I wouldn't wish on anybody. Going through labor it's amazing, but it's also the scariest and hardest thing that a woman will ever do in her life. As women, we are such strong beings, and our bodies are so amazing to be able to carry a life for 9 months and then give life to a human. It's amazing, and it's something that I think everybody should experience, or everyone should experience, being a mom. But it's definitely not something that I don't know if I want to go through it again, but my doctor had told me that I'm probably going to have a C-section for every child I deliver, because my pelvis is so narrow that I just can't deliver. And the C-section recovery is so painful. And luckily I recovered within like 5 days. Usually the recovery is 6 weeks. So my pain started to go away around day 5. But that too is very painful. So, I didn't want to make this video to scare anybody. I didn't want anyone to get freaked out. If you are getting induced, your situation might be different than mine. This was just my situation. I wanted to share it with you guys because I felt comfortable enough to share it with you guys. I didn't know if I really wanted to at first when it had happened. I've been thinking about it. And I'm happy I shared it with you guys. Hopefully it can inform somebody, if you are getting induced, what to expect when it comes to, the medication and stuff like that. But I'm glad I made the video for you guys. And I'm glad I made this video in general. So, thank you for watching. And definitely subscribe to our channel. We're gonna start making a lot more videos, and we're gonna include him in our videos because he is a part of us, and we are a family. So thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned for more videos. Bye.